One of the most commonly asked questions is, which one is better, podcasting or videos? In other words, podcasting versus YouTube. In this episode, I'll help you make that decision of podcasting versus YouTube by giving you a point-by-point explanation of which is better and why. Welcome to the Podcasting University. Looking for help on starting your own podcast? Then this is the place to be. We will help you with everything from selecting your topic to promoting and monetizing your podcast in the simplest language possible. Listen to other podcasters who've been through the grind and learn from them as we interview them every week. You can find more details on thepodcastinguniversity.com. Hello and welcome to episode 71 of the Podcasting University. This is Dilip, your host. And if you're new to the show, then this is a show where I talk about podcasts and podcasting tips. So if you're planning on starting a podcast, then take a pen and paper and get ready to take notes. Okay, so one of the most common questions I get asked by people who come on the discovery call is, which is better, podcasting or YouTube? Now, that's a slightly difficult question to answer, at least for me who like both the channels, but I also agree that it is a valid question from a creator standpoint, from somebody who wants to start off with content creation. So in this episode, I will try to cover as much information as possible to help you make that decision between podcasting versus YouTube. So let's get started. And don't forget to listen to the episode until the end, where I will share a nifty little trick that I have tested, it works, and is something that I use. So don't forget to listen to the show until the end of the episode. Now, let's get started. Now, both of these channels, podcasting and YouTube, have their own disadvantages and advantages, of course. While that can be one criteria to make a decision, it is important to look at both these channels from a purpose standpoint as well. And that is what I will do today. So I'm going to break it down into 6 different aspects or 6 different factors, which will then help you decide if you would want to go with podcasting or with YouTube. Now these 6 parts or 6 factors are going to be time commitment, comfortability factor, budget, purpose, competition, and promotions. So first, time commitment. YouTube is a very draining platform if you do not have the right systems in place and also the support as well. Now, the time required for creating videos, editing, uploading, all of this can be extremely huge and can become overwhelming if you do not have the right systems in place. And if you're not committed to spending that many hours doing all of that, and if you don't have the technical knowledge of how to go about editing your videos, uploading it on YouTube, doing the right SEO and all of those aspects. Now, one of the things that I hate about creating videos is getting all dressed up for the videos, because you need to look good on videos. And that is one of the biggest benefits in podcasting. You could be sitting in the corner of your bedroom in your pajamas, just out of your bed, and recording your episode, and nobody will even realize it. But try doing that on your YouTube video and you know what will happen. So podcasting, if you compare it with YouTube, takes a lot less production time and is extremely low on technical skill requirement. So the first point to consider in podcasting versus YouTube is the time that you can commit to for content creation. How much time can you devote to content creation is the first criteria that you would want to look at before deciding on podcasting versus YouTube. Number 2, comfortability factor. Video is not something that a lot of people will be comfortable with, like me, of course. I was extremely uncomfortable being in front of the camera, all dressed up and looking good and talking to an audience. But over a period of time, as I pushed myself to do it, I became more and more comfortable, and now I find myself enjoying the process of creating videos. Of course, I first started off with faceless videos where I didn't have to show my face, and after I created a lot of such videos, I slowly graduated to where I am. But if you are an introvert like me and you aren't comfortable showing up on camera, then podcasting can be your thing, because podcasting is in fact made for introverts. You don't need to show your face or your looks. You can sit there in the corner of your room, record an episode and put it out there for the audience to hear. It's that simple. We're almost 5 minutes into today's episode, and I'm hoping that you are enjoying the conversation until now. If you are, then please do consider referring this podcast to your friends, your family, and your social media circles. Whoever is interested in getting started a podcast, they'll be able to find a lot of value in this show. So do consider referring the Podcasting University to people who you think will benefit from this information. Now, let's continue with the conversation. Number 3, budget. Now, this is a big one. YouTube is huge in terms of competition, and to stand out, you will have to have quality both in the content as well as in the production as well. So that demands a high quality or a good quality video camera. Now, some of the smartphone cameras these days are of excellent quality and you can always use them, which is what I also do in my videos. But a professional setup has its own advantages, and you will easily be able to make out the difference between a professional setup, a video created using a professional setup, and something that is created using a smartphone camera. Now, the one thing that you cannot do with is quality lighting, because that is something that is a must when you're creating videos. With poor lighting, the production quality goes down drastically and it will impact your overall viewership. So you will need to invest in good quality lighting setup. A microphone is another important piece which you will need in podcasting as well. So overall, if you look at the expenses that you would incur on putting together a good setup for YouTube videos, it will be much more than what you would incur in podcasting, because you can start off your podcast with a very simple microphone, but a good quality microphone, and that is all that you need. You have the software to edit it, which is free, and then most of the podcast hosts out there offer you free hosting as well. So it's free. The only expenditure will be in terms of the microphone. But if you look at videos, you will need a paid software to edit your videos. You will need a good microphone. You will need to invest in some good lighting, and you will also need a good video camera. So that's a lot of expenditure. So get into video production if you're okay to spend a little more on the production quality in comparison to that of podcasting. Number 4, purpose. Now, what is your purpose? Now, this is an important question to ask yourself before you decide on which way to go. Podcasting is a good medium if you're focused on auditory storytelling type content. For example, interviews with experts, narrative storytelling, narrative education, etc. can do extremely well with podcasts. And podcast consumption is also easier than videos. So if your objective is to convey messages that doesn't necessarily need your audience or people to be staring at your screens, then podcasting is the best medium. But if you want your audience to look at the screen to learn something, maybe using a screen share or a screen recording, etc., then podcasting isn't something that can do that. You will have to go with video, and video is the best medium for that. So if your purpose of content generation doesn't require audiences to be glued in and looking at their computer screens or mobile screens, then podcasting is the way to go. But if it is otherwise, then go with YouTube videos. Number 5, competition. I'm sure you would be able to relate to the saying, it is better to be a big fish in a small pond rather than a small fish in a big pond. YouTube is huge, and since its first video in 2005, it has grown like crazy. There are more than 51 million YouTube channels as on date. Compare that to podcasting, where the competition is relatively low and you know which is a small pond. So you're competing against a much smaller group in podcasting. If you have some solid strategies to stand out on YouTube, then video is the way to go. Else, I would recommend going with podcasting and following some of the basic promotional techniques to stand out in the competition and build your authority there. Number 6, promotions. Now, this could be one of the most important factors in deciding between podcasting versus YouTube. Finding and gathering audience can be a huge challenge in podcasting. You need to have the right strategies, you'll need to be on social media sites promoting your episodes regularly, and you will need to slog it out to find audience. Add to it the fact that there is very little help from search engines in listing podcasts in their search results, and you have a problem of limited reach and discoverability. Compare it to videos. Videos can get ranked on search engines pretty easily because Google ranks videos. YouTube too has its own ranking algorithm. And if you follow video SEO correctly, it is extremely easy to rank on YouTube search results as well. So, if you have the right SEO strategies, then ranking your videos is much easier in comparison to podcasting, which means you can get your audience pretty easily in comparison to podcasts. In fact, these days podcasters are using videos too to find their audience. So videos supplemented with podcasts work amazingly well. But you know what is better in terms of leveraging audience. So you will need to account for this promotion time as well when you decide on your time commitment. So here is what you will need to keep in mind. Podcasting will need about 2 to 3 hours in planning, scripting, recording, editing, interviewing, etc. And another about 4 to 5 hours promoting your show to get the audience. Whereas videos could take anywhere between 3 to 5 hours for planning, scripting, recording, editing, etc. But you will save the time on promotions. So depending upon this, you will need to decide what is it that you would want to go with. If you're okay with spending that additional time on promotions and competing against a smaller group of competitors, then podcasting is the way to go. But if you don't want to spend that additional time on promotions and you feel that you're not comfortable spending time on social media promoting your content and you just want YouTube's natural algorithm to send traffic to you, then YouTube is the way to go. But then keep in mind that you're competing against an extremely high competition, high number of competitors, and ranking your videos can be extremely difficult in that kind of a competition. Now, here are a few other aspects that I would recommend that you consider before making the decision on podcasting versus YouTube. 1. Podcasts offer a much more personal experience to consumers, and mediums that offer better personal experience is better received by audience. So that's why podcasting is a much preferred and more engaged medium when you look at the listenership or look at the audience. Number 2, podcast production costs are much lower in comparison to YouTube videos. So if you don't want to spend a lot of money on content generation, then podcasting is the way to go. Number 3, clickability. Now, clickability is much better with videos. If you're searching for something on Google and you're presented with a video and a text link, then the likelihood of you clicking on the video link is much more than the text link. Hence, videos have an advantage over podcasts on that aspect. Number 4, since all videos majorly sit on YouTube and YouTube has its own searchability feature as well, searchers or content searchers are more likely to be searching for videos than audio. Podcast is spread across the network and there is no one channel where you'll be able to find all of the podcasts aggregated and ranked in terms of the content that they are generating. So that's a challenge with podcast. Number 5, podcasts can be published on YouTube as well. And on top of that, the latest news is that YouTube is now working on putting together a dedicated podcast page. So if you're already into podcasting or if you're planning to get into podcasting, then all of the episodes that you release is something that you can publish on YouTube as videos with a static image. And also YouTube's new podcast page might help you get additional audience. Number 6, audio can at times sound very monotonous if the host isn't energetic and enthusiastic enough to hold the audience's attention. Whereas videos can be more engaging and can be made interesting as well with a little more effort, with a slightly more innovative thinking, you'll be able to make your videos much more engaging. So that way, video has an advantage over audio. So finally, on to the tip that I spoke about. Now, this is something that I've done, I'm doing currently, and I found that it works. If you are a podcaster or if you're planning to start a podcast. Now, what I would recommend is, I would recommend starting a podcast to build your authority. Then also create a YouTube channel and publish all of your podcast episodes to YouTube. By using a static image, you can publish all of these episodes to YouTube as well. Then create shorts from these videos. It's pretty easy on YouTube. You can create shorts pretty easily. Create shorts and use it in your promotions or use it for promoting your podcast or promoting your episode. You'll be able to use YouTube's reach to find newer audience who will then tune into your episode regularly. That way you'll be able to use the additional leverage of YouTube's audience. Then once you've established yourself doing this, then slowly start creating videos, maybe fortnightly or maybe monthly frequency. I am doing it on a weekly basis now. Depending upon your comfortability, you can decide that frequency. Create videos and publish that to YouTube, which will again help you build further audience, which you can then channel to your podcast. This strategy can work wonders if you implement it, put a little more time and implement it. It can do something amazing to your podcast as well. So that's all that I have for this episode. I hope you enjoyed this episode and you found value in this episode. If you did, then I would recommend that you subscribe to the Podcasting University on your favorite podcasting platform, so that you stay updated with the latest episodes that I release here on the Podcasting University. Podcasting University is a weekly podcast, so I release an episode every week. You can visit the podcastinguniversity.com, where you'll be able to find the show notes, the printable transcript, and all of the resources that I recommend for podcasting. If you have any questions, you can drop your questions there in the comments section and I will respond to it, or you can even use the contact us button there and I'll be more than happy to respond to it. The Podcasting University is available on pretty much all podcasting platforms, including Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Amazon Prime Music, Ghana, JioSaavn. So pick your favorite platform and give it a listen in there. And wherever you listen to it, don't forget to rate the show there, because that helps in the overall ranking of the show on that particular platform. The Podcasting University is there on Good Pods. If you are a Good Pods listener, then download the app. Good Pods is an amazing platform for podcasters. Listen to the Podcasting University there, and you can engage with me by dropping your comments in there, and we'll be able to engage in a conversation there. So that is all that I have for this episode. I'll be back again the next week with another interesting podcasting tip. Until then, keep listening to the Podcasting University, and you all have a wonderful rest of the week.